webinar tonight. We are so grateful that you were all able to join us this evening. Um, Thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. We miss you so much. We are looking forward and crossing our fingers to returning soon and being together with you. But we want to thank you for your support in this last year and change, for always being there for us as part of our community. Before I hand over the mic to Joanne, I did want to do our land acknowledgement and remind everyone that if you have any questions during the panel, please pop them in the Q&A, and Joanne, Brielle, and Tom will address them as we go along. So before I hand over to Joanne, I'm going to read the land acknowledgement. So I'm going to start with the Playwrights Horizons land acknowledgement. Playwrights Horizons acknowledges that our theater, located on the island of Manhattan, Mannahatta, is situated on land that is Lenape-Hoking, homeland of the Lenape. We pay respect to the Lenape peoples, Lenape elders, and their ancestors, past, present, and future. As our theater's work and community extends beyond this island, we acknowledge that the Northeast is the homeland of many Indigenous nations. Playwrights Horizons pays respect to all Indigenous peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations, and to their ongoing contributions culturally, intellectually, artistically, and spiritually. I'd also like to take a moment to read our digital land acknowledgement. Adrian Wong of Spiderweb Show in Ontario has written this digital land acknowledgement. Since our activities are shared digitally to the internet, let's also take a moment to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many Indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art we make leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect Indigenous people worldwide. I invite you to join me in acknowledging all this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time, and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship. I want to thank you all again, and without further ado, the floor is yours, Joanne.
Thanks so much, Eva. Thank you. And I personally am so thrilled to be here, to feel a part of what's coming next for Playwrights Horizons. Just by way of introduction, I back in the day, I've been a fan of Playwrights Horizons for more than 20 years. I was an audition reader back in the day. I've been a cast member. I have been a staff spouse. And for the last many years, a devoted fan and patron. And anything I can do to continue the mission and the great work that happens at Playwrights is absolutely my honor and pleasure. So I will now hand it over to Tom to introduce himself, one of our esteemed panel members, and then he can pass it to Brielle, also, who's going to give us some great information today during this webinar.
Great, thank you, Joanne, and good evening, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you. My name is Tom Moore. I work on the Endowment and Foundation Advisory Team at Glenmead Trust Company, based in Philadelphia, with offices scattered, throughout the Northeast and Florida, including in New York City. And I work with nonprofits all day long, grant-making foundations, public charities like Playwrights Horizons. We are a financial services firm, and we really do great work with our nonprofit clients. And when I was asked to be part of this, I jumped at the opportunity because we're all about philanthropy on our team, and this is a great opportunity to talk with you and see how you can make a difference in the life of a great institution. So happy to be here and be part of this. And Brielle, I'm happy to pass the floor over to you.
Great, thanks. Can you hear me? Everyone can hear me, great. Delighted to be here today. So I'm Brielle Steinberg. I started my career at Playwrights Horizons 15 years ago, was a marketing resident, and then worked as Tim Sanford's, the artistic director's assistant for many years before going to business school and staying in the nonprofit space, certainly inspired by Playwrights, working for CCS Fundraising as a fundraising consultant, though this is falling in kind of a funny time for me because my last day at CCS after about 8 years was Friday, and I am transitioning to a new company called Free Will, that I encourage everyone on the call or watching later to check out, that really focuses on planned giving and bequests and encouraging more individuals to include nonprofits in their estate plan. So very excited for that, and really excited to be here because it feels very resonant with this career change.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Brielle. So I feel like, I don't know what our audience feels like, but I feel like this is that point in a movie when you're coming out of the cave and you're squinting in the sunlight and you don't know what it's going to look like. You know, a year or more has passed. Theater in an unprecedented way went dark. None of us imagined that could ever happen. So how do we come back? And how do we now support that transition from the darkness to the light, right? So that getting our favorite organizations through this period. So what do you think it looks like today in terms of giving and taking us to the next stage of reopening?
Yeah, I think overall we saw fundraising, the generosity of individuals across the board, all nonprofit sectors, really strong in 2020, which was wonderful given what a challenging year it was for everyone. Human services organizations saw huge, healthcare, and the arts and culture also really strong. Also, we're saving some money when you talk about performing arts because they weren't putting up the productions that required the huge investments. So fundraising remained probably flat, maybe not growing significantly, but was still important. It's going to be critical now as we talk, and I know probably those on the call, and we were talking a little before, when are people getting into a theater? Nonprofits, performing arts organizations have their work cut out for them, figuring out how to reopen. It's not just turning on the light switch. So the way we as donors, and I'm a supporter of Playwrights Horizons and a lot of performing arts institutions, is that we continue our generosity, increasing where we can. And I think the other thing I've been thinking a lot about is that I think you will see, and I've seen it a little bit in some of these summer organizations that are announcing seasons for the summer, that we're going, in early fall, we're going to see sort of donate in order to be able to get tickets, because there are going to be limited tickets. So you may find yourself asked, and I would hope if you can to jump on board to donate so that you do have access to the theater and that you want to see.
That's great. You bring up a great point though, Brielle. Tom, let's talk about ways to give. Is it always cash? Does it have to be cash? Does anybody have a checkbook anymore? So as we think about sustaining these, playwrights especially, but our favorite arts organizations, what are the ways of giving, right? What are sustainable and long-term commitments that we can all make that are going to get us through this pandemic and hopefully, for years and years to come?
It's a good question. And I do have a checkbook. It makes for a wonderful coaster nowadays. But that being said, cash is cash, and cash is always important. And to the extent that people can support Playwrights Horizons and other organizations with their gifts of cash, whether it's one time or recurring, that remains a constant need, and people should continue to do that. But there are lots of other ways that they can creatively support the charities that they care about, including Playwrights Horizons. So, stock gifts and maybe we'll get to that in a minute, but stock gifts are an important way to support. You can make gifts to charity through your IRA, both during your lifetime and following your passing. Many of us are fortunate to work for employers that match charitable gifts. So the leavening effect of a charitable gift through gift matching is an important consideration. We'll talk a lot about legacy giving, as part of your estate plan, whether it's your IRA or life insurance or wills or trusts. And we encourage you to talk with Ben and Eva from Playwrights Horizons. There are things called plan gifts, which are like a combination of a charitable gift and a gift that provides income to you, like a charitable trust or a charitable gift annuity. That's a way to support the charities that you care about. And there's also a really hot tool that's really gaining a lot of traction called a donor advised fund, which I think people can avail themselves of. Very briefly, it's a charitable account that you set up, and you make a charitable gift when you put assets into the account, and then you recommend grants out over time to various charities. And the donor advised fund is a charity, so that's your charitable gift. It's really good for front loading your giving. It's really good for complex assets like real estate or illiquid securities like hedge funds and private equity funds and closely held business interests, big complicated gifts that are not easy to dispose of, if you will, but are really good for charitable giving and that can support a lot of charities over time. So a lot of financial institutions, Glenmead among them, sponsor them for their customers. Community foundations sponsor them. Lots of different opportunities with donor advised funds. And again, I would suggest talking with Ben and Eva from the Playwrights Horizons team if that might be something, in your orbit, if you will.
That's great. And I guess it is of the moment, right? The donor advised fund. So if I was to think about that for me, I'm going to put some money into, right? I create an account, I put some money in, I invest it, and then that might grow more than that initial, let's say I was giving $1,000, but it grows over 10 years to be $10,000. I then have the power of that investment to give benefit, right, to those organizations that I designate for that gift. Is that how it works?
Correct. It's like a charity. Yeah, I mean, I use the term charitable checkbook, but it's
Nice.
or like a charitable account. And what the sponsor does is they pool your resources, your gift with other gifts. So when you make the gift into the fund, you're talking with the fund about, do you expect to spend this down over time, or do you expect to treat it like an endowment, for example? And based on what you choose, will sort of dictate what type of an investment pool it goes into. And then over time, you'll get a statement that'll say, okay, you started with this much this month. These are the grants that you paid out. This is the investment return that is allocated to your share of the fund. And then therefore, this is how much is left.
Great.
For you.
Oh, and I'll just jump in quickly, Joanna. And I like that you said, you mentioned $1,000, because I think as donor advised funds are becoming more common, we're seeing the number of them go way up and then the dollar amount in each of them go way down, because it is becoming more of a common tool as opposed to just for that upper echelon of philanthropists, which is really exciting. And there are some companies that are offering donor advised funds to their employees as sort of a perk and really encouraging philanthropic giving that way. So it's really exciting. And I think using $1,000 is great rather than $1 million, or sort of sometimes I think when you think family foundation or donor advised fund, you think huge amounts, and it really doesn't have to be that.
Right. And I think too, you at the point you put the money in, you get the tax benefit of that tax deduction on your taxes, but that money actually grows. So your impact to the organization can actually be quite significant, more significant than the initial cash amount, right? If markets perform for us, which we all hope they do. Right. So that's great. So I think you mentioned, Tom, a few things here, and I want to dig in a little bit. Stock giving. So how does that work? I mean, in terms of, giving that sort of gift rather than cash, looking at something, is it a matter of saying, okay, I've actually gotten a lot of gain here and I'm going to give some of these shares over to the organization? How does that work?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
That?
Yeah, no, happy to elaborate on that. So, we all know what happened in February and March of 2020 when the market, took a very significant nosedive, for lack of a better word. But we also know that in the months since then, we're now back at record highs. So there's a lot of people, hopefully a lot of people, that are sitting on a lot of securities that they own that have appreciated tremendously in value. So if you're motivated to give, and let's say you have $1,000 that you want to give to Playwrights Horizons, instead of giving $1,000 of cash, maybe you have $1,000 worth of Coca-Cola stuff, just using Coca-Cola as an example. And maybe that $1,000 you paid $500 for it, right? So why not, instead of selling that Coca-Cola stock, why not give the stock to your charity? So if you sell that stock, you're going to realize the capital gain. And depending on how long you've held it, depending on your tax profile, it could be as high as 28%. It could be as low as 15%. Or if you've held it for a very short period of time, it could be as high as your highest marginal tax rate. So, and capital gains tax is likely to go up, you know, under the president's plan that he outlined just last week. So instead of giving away the tax to the government, what you can do is give the stock to your favorite charity, like Playwrights Horizons, and let them sell it. You'll get a deduction based on the market value of the stock on the date that you give it, and you avoid all of that taxation. So you're giving the gain away in addition to, you know, what you paid for it. You could also use the stock as the basis for a planned gift, like I talked about, like a gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust. And what you would do there is you would mitigate the tax consequences, because you would take the gain out over the life of your income interest rather than incurring it all at once. That would still then provide significant benefit to charity, and also you know, mitigate the tax consequences of otherwise selling the gift, otherwise selling the stock, excuse me. So lots of opportunities there. And again, I would say talk to Ben and Eva from Playwrights Horizons about it.
Right, and I think I should say we are not giving tax advice on this call.
Oh yes, I should have said that.
We are only giving options and opportunities to support Playwrights and obviously all of our favorite arts organizations. Another thing you brought up, Tom, I'm going to keep picking on you a little bit here, but you did bring up your IRA giving, right? And I've had an IRA since I was probably 25 years old. And I've been told, don't touch it, 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 right? And it grows, and I'm leaving it there. So walk me through, though, what I can do, maybe through designating a beneficiary sort of relationship in that IRA that would then benefit, you know, let's say Playwrights as an example. Is that what we mean about IRA giving?
Yes, but there's also things you can do before the beneficiary designation kicks in.
Tell me.
So the IRA, you're right. I mean, you put money in an IRA and it grows income tax free, you know, until you take it out, right? And so there are a lot of people who are blessed to have very large IRAs, and they also take the IRA money out. There's a minimum amount that they have to take out when they reach 72, and for many people, they take that amount out because they have to, right? And so when you take it out, you're incurring that income tax. So one strategy, and the Secure Act of 2018 or 2019, excuse me, could be 2017. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Made permanent what's called the IRA charitable qualified distribution, and essentially what that allows, or it's called the IRA charitable rollover as well. Taxpayers can withdraw up to $100,000 per year from their IRA and make direct gifts to charities like Playwrights Horizons. And so what they do is they're not getting a charitable deduction, but they're also not bringing that money into income. So they're not taxed on it. So for people who have IRAs and they don't need all of the assets in the IRA, it's a great vehicle for giving. And a great way to mitigate your tax consequences and make your estate more efficient. Again, we're not giving tax advice, right? But it's a great tool. Very importantly, in that same act, the Secure Act, they eliminated what's called the Stretch Ira. So previously, when for a spouse can roll over their spouse's IRA into their own, right? But if you're a non-spouse, like a child, and you inherit an IRA, you used to be able to make an election to stretch that out over many years including your own life expectancy. So if you're younger and you inherit the IRA from a parent, you could stretch that out over your life expectancy, get even more tax deferred growth, and really space it out. Now that's gone away, and now you must withdraw that within 10 years of inheritance. So what that means is you're front loading a lot of tax that's otherwise, and it could seriously erode the value of the IRA. So an important planning tool that's come up because of this change is for people who have IRAs and have other assets that they could leave to their kids or their other non-spousal beneficiaries, to consider what those other assets might be, and then think about charity as the beneficiary of the IRA, so that you save on all of that income tax, and you provide real significant benefit to the charities that you care about. So it's a question of looking at your full asset picture and saying, do I have other assets that are more efficient from a tax perspective that I could leave to my kids, grandkids, you name it, and still support the charities that I care about.
Great.
Because then 100 cents on the dollar from the IRA goes to charity rather than
Right, exactly. So lots of options here for giving. One of the things we've heard about and I personally know about are restricted sort of giving, right? Where I want to give for a certain thing. I only want this to go to a certain piece of work or a certain level of production quality or production sort of value. So Brielle, talk us through that in terms of what the options are there, and there's pros and cons really of restricting your gift and what that means, how it works, how it maybe is a hindrance as well. If you could help us there.
Happily. So I think at the end of the day, philanthropy and giving is always a conversation. And Tom has said a couple of times, talk to Ben and Eva. I see a great question from Nicole in the chat about Playwrights. Can they receive cryptocurrency? And Ben saying, we haven't yet, but we can. And I think that's what a lot of nonprofits are saying. So it's always a conversation. And when you're talking about restricted giving, that's a huge conversation. And it's funny being at CCS fundraising where we really focus on major gifts. And a lot of those gifts, when you're talking, $100,000 and above giving, people want to, if they're making that size investment, they want to restrict their giving perhaps to a specific program. Maybe they're funding a scholarship. Maybe they're underwriting a commission for a play, depending on the organization. When you're talking lower level giving, which is what sort of free will focuses on more of the sort of democratization of philanthropy, then it doesn't make sense for the organization to necessarily allow you to restrict your giving too specifically for obvious reasons, right? You can't make a $25 gift you can't make a $25 gift and restrict it to something that costs $100,000. That doesn't make a lot of sense. What organizations can and continue to do a great job of is sort of identifying funding buckets or areas to give. So Playwrights might say, for our productions, do this to, we have, please, you can click a button and all of your giving will go to production support. Or if you want your giving to go to grants for new playwrights, you can, contribute towards that. And it's sort of a more general bucketing. And that I think is where restricted giving is ideal, because it's still filling a need that an organization has, but it's not so specific that it's at a lower level than they're able to accommodate. And when you talk about higher levels of giving, you have to really think about whether it's tying back to the organization's mission. So a lot of the work we did at CCS is around, someone wants to give us $5 million. Let's say, we should all be so lucky, but it's to something, right? But it's to something completely outside of our capabilities, our wheelhouse. We're not really interested in doing it. is that worth it? And in many, many cases, the answer is no, even though it can be hard to walk away from money. So restricted giving is a complicated, in many ways, a good problem to have, but a complicated issue. And again, if you have sort of an area you really want to invest in, it's a conversation to have with the organization of why you choose that organization to carry that out, and how you might be able to work together to make something happen.
I think, you know, we say, and I think we mean no donation too big or too small, right? So again, I think there's something to be said here about every dollar counts. And I think going through the pandemic, of course, every dollar mattered. So, you know, talk to us about how to encourage and sustain what someone might think doesn't matter, right? Well, if, you know, and I'll tell my personal anecdote, because, you know, Daniel, who used to work at Playwrights Horizons, works at St. Anne's Warehouse in Brooklyn, and got an envelope in the mail with $5, a $5 bill in it, right? And someone thought to give that $5, and I'm sure that $5 was a sacrifice, right? To donate that, but a heartfelt dedication to keeping the spirit of the theater alive. So talk to me about that. Talk to me about small donation giving, how we encourage it, how we sustain it, ideas for people to do it in a way that's not, you know, it almost, you don't notice, right? Things like that. And that can really make a difference to an organization, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sort of obvious answer, but is that small donations add up, and they really, really do. And we can pull out all types of statistics about sort of where just sheer numbers of giving and how it can really, really increase an organization's bottom line. It also gives them, from the nonprofit's perspective, it could be a great way of identifying who is in their community and helping some people who maybe have the resources to become larger and larger donors. So from an organization's perspective, they want as many donors as they can for a lot of reasons. I think when you're talking about Playwrights Horizons, we are a communal people, right? It's theater, it's art. You want as many people to come see your plays. You want as many people supporting it in any way that they can. Absolutely. I mean, I think what you're hinting at for the reoccurring giving, the sort of set it and forget it, as we say, monthly, yeah, monthly donations, right? That just come out of your checking account every month is a huge way, and it's a real focus for many, many nonprofits. I did some work with PBS North Carolina, so public media. That's huge. I mean, their membership program of just, I think it was $5 a month. I mean, that was their bread and butter, 100%. They had people all across North Carolina. That was, I mean, if that program went away, they would be in real trouble. So it can make an enormous, enormous difference. I know that Playwrights, I pay my Generation PH membership. Eva could tell me, it's either I think it's monthly, it might be quarterly, but it just every year re-ups. That's huge. It's easy for the donor to not have to worry about. It is easy for the nonprofit to plan ahead of time, right. even in those large or small quantities, and it's in large numbers, and it's hugely important. I think the last thing I'll say is Tom mentioned stock giving, cryptocurrency, all of these ways to give that are sort of, you don't in your head psychologically necessarily really think of them as, they're just not the same as cash from your checkbook, especially if they grow in the way that we've seen cryptocurrency or stocks perform. And so when you make gifts in small amounts there, and it depends on what you're talking about with small, but let's say you're thinking about making $100 donation, you might, when you go to give 2 shares of a stock that's performed well, maybe it's $107 or $112, or, you know, it's like a little bit more. So I think it is in nonprofits' best interest, and this is some of the work that Free Will does that I will be learning more about as I start that new role, is in making that easier, because when you see stock giving and cryptocurrency and those types of gifts, it just increases, again, the small amount can really raise the tide.
Absolutely. So We've talked a little bit about getting the donations and receiving that support from the, our community. Let's talk a little bit about what that means in terms of creating that relationship with that organization and what the expectation is around that conversation that we've been saying. Call Eva, call Ben. We have ideas, we have ways to tailor to your particular situation to, again, create a long-lasting relationship with the organization. And there are benefits to be gained from that in terms of patron, sort of benefits and things like that. So can we talk a little bit about, what happens when you give?
Yeah, I can dive in on that. The first thing, I think giving feels good, people don't just give what's in their wallets or what's in their bank accounts. They give what's in their heart, right? And we support organizations like Playwrights Horizons or other charities because they matter to us, because they feel that they speak to us, they speak to our worldview, and we want to make a difference, right? So when we give, we get something in return, which is satisfaction. We get the satisfaction of seeing that what we're giving is making a difference. I think, to a degree, we also become investors. We become invested in the mission of the organization. And so as we give, we develop relationships with the people who are stewarding, who are responsible for for making good use of the funds that we give. And we develop relationships with them. And it's important to hear from them about the difference that our gifts are making. It's important for us to stay on top of what's happening in the organization and where's the organization going. Because if I'm feeling connected, I'm going to give again, right? And then my relationship, it's a two-way street. It's good for the charity, but it's also good for me as the donor, because I want to feel like I'm making a difference. And one way for me to know that is to hear it from the organization that I'm supporting, right? So I think it's important that it be a conversation. And I also, to Brielle's point, I also, as that donor, would want to make a difference in something that's particularly important to me. So if I can pinpoint my gift to something that the organization needs, it'll feel really good to make that happen. So I think that comes through dialogue and it comes through conversation. So the more conversation, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I have to say, I agree completely. And there's something so lovely about something that just isn't a one and done, right? So rather than, that check once, and, I saw some wonderful theater and I went to a dinner or two or to an opening night party or something, but that I see the impact that I'm able to have on a year in and year out basis in terms of investing in the mission, and especially Playwrights Horizons, that is dedicated to new American work. And, we're continually bringing forward new playwrights, new vision, new voices to make a difference, to reflect society, to bring, to put actors to work, to put playwrights to work, to put designers, to put costumers, to put, all of the fabric of the arts to work in a bastion, really, for me, of New York theater, of the go-to place, right? To hear a new play, to see a new musical. I mean, how thrilling and exciting is that? And to do something in a sustainable way, in a long-term commitment that you're continually feeling great about yourself, right? You're continually feeling good that you were able to fund that or help fund that mission, I think is important, right? So that's just a little my little 2 cents on that. I just wanted to you recap a little bit, right? Because we've covered a lot of ground here. Donor advised funds as something to explore. Google that. There are several ways to do that. and a lot of information out there. Stock giving, as Tom said, in terms of being able to monetize your gains to the benefit of your favorite arts organization, Playwrights Horizons. Matching gifts, talk to your company. And if you're giving something in a sustainable way, in a monthly way, get the match happening at the same time, so that you're getting the benefit of that over time. The IRA, which I learned a lot tonight about, what can happen there. So again, more information. And then legacy giving, of thinking long-term, thinking about your estate and what your plans are for your beneficiaries and what opportunities there might be for tax benefit to them and to your to our favorite Playwrights Horizon. So I just wanted to cover a few of those things in recap. And I guess turn it over for any questions at this point. If there are any out there, we're monitoring this, or if we want to just, do a roundtable here with Brielle and Tom of things I might not have thought of or had in my notes, other things that we want to share with the audience here. I will open it up for that.
Right, we can keep talking.
Let's just keep talking.
Well, no, I think, Joanne, what you said is beautiful at the end. And talk about a spokesperson for giving to Playwrights Horizons, which I'm very aware that you are, but I think it's on the organization too, to make sure those conversations are happening, to ask for these gifts. I think we spent a lot of time at CCS talking to leaders of organizations about how people don't give if they're not asked. And I actually, when we talk about legacy and plan giving, was just reading an article today about the need to encourage estate planners to make sure that when they are talking to their clients about creating wills or creating their estate plans, that they ask, are there nonprofits or, do you want to include charitable giving? How do you, if you want to include charitable giving, if they don't ask, then something like 5% of people making estate plans will include nonprofits in them. And if they do ask, if they just ask one question, do you want to, then it's like 10%. But then if they say, here is why you might want to, and give a little more background and sort of encourage it, it's 15%, you see 20%, and the gifts that are being left are much higher. So I think that is critically important, certainly for plan giving, which is a huge area of growth and a very hot topic in the philanthropic world, but just in general, make sure that the nonprofit is explaining the need, has spokespeople like Joanne, out there, and really shows. And I think in this year, where as we are coming back to sort of loop back to the first question, when we're looking at 2021 and this reemergence, that they're really explaining, maybe it might not always be sexy, but the need, why you do maybe not want to restrict giving. And we really need general operating support, because we're going to have to clean the theaters 3 more times than we usually do a week, or whatever the sort of re-entry looks like. So I
actually had a thought. You spawned that, but it's May, and I would normally be very much looking forward to going over to Rent the Runway to buy get a dress to go to the gala. So that would be my normal spring endeavor here with Playwrights, but galas have generally been virtual rather than in person. And I'm wondering too if in terms of looking for gala support, that we actually are more explicit in giving donation options, right? Of rather than buying a table, I could actually donate 10,000 in stock, and that could be my table donation rather than trying to bring 8 of my friends to the theater, which I would love to do. But in absence of that, right? So I think too, we want to make sure that people know that the organization survives on giving, right? The budget for all of this great work really is geared toward bringing in those donations. And I think we want to make sure people just, well, there's no party this year, so I don't need to give anything. I don't need to do anything, that we actually say, no, actually, we need it more than we ever did. And yes, there's no party. And what that means is there's no deduction, right, for the cost of the food that we might have fed you at that party. Yeah. So all of the money that you give is 100% a tax, sort of benefit to you, but the organization still needs that support. What we look at in a gala in the spring really fuels the coming back from the pandemic, the opening, the cleaning, as you said, Brielle, and all of the efforts to get back to normal, right? So I just wanted to put that out there, and I'm going to think about how I can do that for this gala. And I just offer that as an idea of, a different, rather than it being a check, it can be something better, something longer.
And the fact that, if you turn that on its head a little bit, Joanne, that the fact that there is not a gala, to a degree, frees up resources for you as the donor. So, so what you wouldn't be spending at Rent a Runway, which I've never been to, so I can't wait. But that does free up the cost of it frees up resources that you would be spending participating, right? So the margin for the charity is greater because they're not spending the money on the food, but the wiggle room for you as the donor is also greater. So just
right. And I think we want to make sure people know that a virtual gala isn't cheaper. It isn't less worthy of the gift or donation. It's something to stay connected by. It's something to remind you of what you're what you love about Playwrights Horizons. But it is also the impetus for us to say it's time. It's that time, right? And let's make sure that we're funding the Playwrights fully and as creatively as we can, right, through this pandemic.
And
I think it'll be.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, I think it'll be really interesting as we do come out of this. We saw a lot of virtual events. We're still seeing a lot of virtual events. I got an invitation in the last couple of days to a couple theater galas. I think stay tuned for a Playwrights Horizons event of some sort. I mean, we're still in sort of that virtual space, but soon with things opening up and everyone getting vaccinated, there's gonna, I think, be a lot of hybrid, because the wonderful thing for theater in general, for organizations in general, but definitely for fundraising, is it just allows you to reach so many more people if you can have that virtual. And I think when you talk about saving resources, there's certainly the Rent the Runway component, but then there's also just the night that you're going to spend, and you have 2 galas on one night, or the babysitter, or there's a lot of different things. And I think people have appreciated maybe a little zoomed out. So thank you to those who are here now and who are tuning in to the recording. But overall, there's just a huge potential. We're eager to get back to face-to-face, but we're also excited, or I'm excited, to continue to be able to stay in touch with organizations across the country or around the world that I wouldn't be able to attend the gala or, sort of get that inside look. So it's an exciting thing, and I hope development teams keep capitalizing on it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we're at the point of wrapping up here. I think I will ask each of you. I'll start with you, Brielle, because you're on camera right now. But talk to us about just that of how you think about donating to arts organizations, how you choose them, how you become a dedicated donor or patron, and what it means to you, how it pays you back, I think, because, I do think, as we've said, there's this community, this feeling of inclusion, this thing that's really family, right? And family is what you make it. And I think, I know from my 20 plus years here that Playwrights is all family to me. So talk to me about that and your broader giving and what you hope to do with free will, et cetera.
Yeah. What do I hope to do at Freewell? So yeah, I think, I mean, the places that I give, if I look at it very sort of broadly and honestly, there are organizations I have connections to, either alma maters or I used to work there, just Playwrights Horizons. Some of my clients over the years, or organizations that other friends have drawn me into, and I've gotten more and more involved. So I think that personal connection is critical. And again, it's the conversation between the nonprofit and myself, and just organizations that are creative in the ways that they reach out, that are thoughtful about it, that tell me how the dollars are used. I love Playwrights Horizons, the infographic they send maybe every year. I don't know, the ones I've gotten that show me that my gift, kept the lights on this production, that kind of thing. So I love that kind of stuff. And I think the reason I'm excited about this role at Free Will is it really is, again, kind of trying to expand access to some giving that seems much more difficult than it is. I think Tom's done a beautiful job today of sort of breaking down qualified charitable distributions and stock giving and cryptocurrency. Sure, we didn't talk about it so much, but I mean, these shouldn't be hard. And then legacy giving, there's a lot of talk, if anyone is in the philanthropic community talking about this 30 trillion, you can hear a lot of different numbers, but something like $30 trillion in generational wealth being transferred over the next couple of decades. And how is it going to be transferred, and what's that going to look like? And estate planning and planned giving and bequeathals are going to be huge. And so just continuing that conversation and making it more, less taboo to talk about estate planning and death and sort of what you do with your assets afterwards. So I'm excited to dig in there and maybe partner with Playwrights Horizons and Free Will at some point in the future. But it's just an exciting time, I think, for philanthropy in general.
Great. And Tom, how about you in terms of your personal involvement in the arts?
Well, my approach to philanthropy, for my own giving, I kind of look, you asked like what motivates our giving, and I kind of focus on three areas, right? One is the organizations that have shaped me, like my alma mater, my religious community, the organizations that have made me who I am, and who instilled with me that culture of gratitude about giving back to the organizations that have affected me, right? The other thing would be, I tend to look for issues that matter to me. What are the things that I want to make a difference on, whether it's social justice issues or environmental issues or things that are, that are affecting me emotionally or intellectually that I want to make a difference on. And I think the other thing about giving is the people in my life that have made a difference to me. Giving is a way to honor them. So it's sometimes giving is a very personal thing, but sometimes, I like to take a step back and put myself in someone else's shoes and honor them. So what was important to my mom? What was important to my dad? When somebody passes away, how do we honor them? When somebody achieves something, how do we honor them? So giving is a way to honor others, and as a way, in addition to giving back to the organizations and issues that affect you personally. As far as my own involvement in the arts, I confess to not have gotten the theater bug when I was a youngster, but I do enjoy it. My passion is music. I was a band kid and a choir kid. Never had enough natural talent to make a career of it, but I'm still heavily involved in it. I've spent much of my adult life involved in the drum and bugle corps activity, which is like theater on a football field to a degree. So it's a really great art form, and I highly commend that to anybody who's interested. But so I give back a lot in the drum corps community with my time and with my talent, and to a degree with my resources as well. And so that sort of keeps me connected. to art and music.
Fantastic. And I love your thought as well of you know, keeping someone's memory, you know, through your giving. And I think Brielle and even Ben know the engraving I have on a couple of seats in that theater there that we visit every time we go. So I love that idea as well.
And very powerful and
yeah.
And you know, I get a lot of satisfaction.
Good. So I think we're wrapping up here. So Tom, wow, you've given me so much to think about. I'm glad I was able to take some notes here, and I have some good ideas. I hope other people have as well. We'll say it again. Please call Eva, please call Ben, you know, and do have the conversation, open the conversation. And there are so many opportunities here to keep the mission statement moving forward, to keep the vision alive, to keep Playwrights Horizon as strong an organization as it has been these 50 years, I believe. So, you know, we're coming up on a big anniversary here, and we really want to continue to invest in this amazing organization. And I thank everybody for their attendance tonight. And I hope we've given you a few things to think about. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Joanne.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye now.
Bye now.